here joined today with an amazing guest. Um, I'm excited to bring you guys this episode. I just recently met our guest, and after hearing his story, I knew it was somebody that I had to have on the show, a high impact keynote speaker, leader of a multi-billion dollar commercial deals, an author, and last but not least, the first blind person to graduate from Harvard Business School. Man, that is quite an accomplishment. Chad Foster, how
Appreciate
you
you having
doing?
me, Obi. Yeah, I'm good, brother. I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm well, man. I know you're pressed for time, man. So I wanted to, I appreciate you for coming in here. I know it's been a little bit
Of
difficult, but
course.
appreciate you for coming in here and sharing, man. You've got such an amazing story, and I
Thank
for one
you.
am honored to have you on here and just sharing your experience, man. So let's dive right into it, man. Give everybody.
Appreciate
I
it, man.
always
Thank
like to
you.
do this. Give us a quick little intro. Who you are, where you from, what do you do? Just give us a quick little intro.
Yeah. Yeah. So, name's Chad Foster. Live in Atlanta at this point, from Tennessee originally, grew up there, and I'm in the business world today. So as you mentioned in the intro, I've led a corporate career spanning from consulting to market intelligence to pricing multi-billion-dollar deals to running large deal-making organizations or large corporate finance organizations at Fortune 15 companies. But today, what I do right now, my heart, my passion is helping people live healthier, more successful lives, happier, more successful lives through my keynote speaking, through my coaching, through my books, and things that I endeavor to try and equip people so that they can bounce back from their own setbacks. And I guess what makes me a little bit different than some of the other folks out there is just the extraordinary amount of adversity that I've been through. So a lot of people have been through adversity, so I don't take that statement lightly. But I went totally blind at 21 years old from an inherited eye condition, so I could see when I was younger, played sports, drove a car, rode motorcycles, all the things. And then, starting in my late teens, early 20s, my eyesight began to fade. By the time I was 21 years old, I had to get a medical withdrawal from my major, from my classes at university. And by the time I was 23 years old, I couldn't even see to walk around. So I had to get a dog to lead me around. And so that's sort of been my journey of how I ended up where I'm at. I mean, that's a little bit of a backdrop, but obviously when it happened, I wasn't in a very good headspace, but now I'm actually happier today and I'm more successful today than when I could see. And I used to take that for granted, and now I realize that's kind of unusual. And so, given my life experience, my lived experience, I want to help empower people so that they can be more resilient and they don't have to feel like victims of their own circumstances. So I like to empower people, whether it's individuals, leaders, organizations, athletes, whomever, so that they can really understand the anatomy of resilience. So I talk about the anatomy of resilience and how did I get from where I was in the pits of despair and the victim mentality to where I'm at today. I like to break down the tools that I've used, the mindset tools to help shift my thinking that helped me stop being a victim of blindness and shift into a better way of thinking and attaching myself to my circumstances in a way that gave me the motivation to move forward, but also with purpose and with conviction.
Mm. So, a couple things I want to get into. That's amazing, man. There's a lot to unpack here, man. I want to get into um, I want to get in some of the methods that you talked about. But first, let's talk about the
Mhm.
resiliency, man. Let's talk about what cultivating that resiliency was like, right? Is that something? Obviously, you've worked on it, but wh- how was
Yep.
your resiliency before you went blind, and what did it turn into? How did you further your resiliency after you went blind? Obviously, you had to, right?
Yeah, you had to. Yeah, I have to, and the short of it is we all have to. Um, I think what helped me was the stark realization that I didn't sign up for this, but I'm not getting a do-over in my life, and neither are
Hmm.
you, and neither will any of your listeners. Nobody's getting a do-over. So the circumstances that you find yourself in, if you can't change the circumstances, at the end of the day, you've got to change how you show up in those circumstances. And so I realized at a very early age in my life, in my 20s, that I couldn't change my blindness, but I could change my attitude towards it and the level of accountability I held myself to for my life, regardless of my circumstances. And so I could sit around and feel sorry for myself, but that at the end of the day wasn't going to change any of my conditions. The only thing it was going to do was make me bitter and blind. And I didn't want to be both. I was going to be blind, but I didn't want to be bitter too. And so I came to the realization that I couldn't sit around and feel sorry for myself for another 50, 60 years, for the rest of my life. That's way too much sorry. So
Mm,
I just decided to take a different approach and do the hard work and figure out a new way of showing up. But certainly, yeah, I'd say I was a pretty determined youth. But when this happens to you, we ask kids all the time what they want to be when they grow up. Guess what? None of them say they want to be a blind person.
right.
So I had to really just reassess and, look myself in the mirror. No blind pun intended there, but look myself in the mirror and figure out, if I was just going to sit around and feel sorry for myself for the rest of my life, what good was that going to do me? Because I knew years from now, when I look back on my life, if I don't get what I want out of my life, whether or not my blindness is the reason, I'm the one who suffers from that. And so I just decided, instead of using all my energy to ruminate, which I was doing, I was just sitting and spinning and ruminating on these circumstances that I didn't want for quite some time. But then I realized that that wasn't serving me and I needed to use my energy in a different way. And so I redirected my energy towards doing something to change the outcomes that I wanted in my life. And so at first it was relearning how to learn, where I actually became a better blind student than sighted student. I was a visual learner, which wasn't all that helpful when I was in college after I went blind. So I had to relearn a new system for learning. I had to, figure out how I was going to get around, how to get a seeing eye dog, and just all these learning technology, learning how to use a computer without being able to see my computer screen, and then figuring out how to write code to engineer my software so that I could do my job more effectively without being able to see my computer screen. So I taught myself all the things, whether that's, we're learning how to write code or build financial models and Excel spreadsheets for multi-billion-dollar technology transactions, doing all this stuff without being able to see. And so it just, the more I did, the more I realized I was capable of. And I think that's true of all of us, for you and all of your listeners. Every single person listening to this right now is capable of more than they give themselves credit for. The hard part is just seeing that when you're in the middle of the change, the disruption, the adversity, the transformation, whatever it is that you're dealing with. When you're in the middle of it, it's hard to see that very clearly because you're sort of overcome with the situation itself.
I mean, listen, you talk, it, it's so natural to just sit here and listen to you speak about, life and how you've just went on with life. And as somebody who, is just getting to know you, and for the listeners, can you break down what it was like? You figured out at 21 that you were you started going blind at
Yep.
21, right?
Yep.
So walk us through that, man, because a lot of people, like myself included, you know, I, I don't, I truly actually don't even know any blind people. You know what I mean? And so the
Yeah. Yeah.
perspective of what it's like and what that life really entails, just walk us through it. Walk us through what from the beginning when you learned about being blind or going blind, what it was like, what you felt like. Talk to us about what that feeling was like, and then overcoming it, and how long did it take to overcome it? How long did you sulk? Because we get into these periods of times and where we're just sulking about whatever, whatever misfortunes we may have. But to look at somebody's story like yourself and say, I mean, this guy didn't give up. This guy could have, if anybody has the excuse, this guy has it, and he chose not to make one. So just walk us through that, man.
It was tough. Not gonna lie to you, man. There were some times that were it was pretty questionable. So I knew at a younger age that I could go blind. I couldn't see well in poor lighting conditions. From a very young age. I was diagnosed at 3, 4 years old with retinitis pigmentosa, and I was learning the limitations of my eyesight, that I could not see well at night when I would injure myself. So I was in the hospital so much as a young that they actually questioned the hospital staff, questioned me and my parents separately, whether or not they were abusing me. And so I was there so much, I needed my own parking spot pretty much. I was busting my head open and breaking bones and needed stitches sort of all the time. And then I
Is this
got
from a
in
lack of
high school
is
and
this because of your the vision was impaired, yeah? Growing up, is that what you're saying?
yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, because it started at night. And so,
So you're
picture
just
if
like
you
running into
will, I'm
things when
playing
you're
outside. Yeah, at dusk. So picture, you're out at dusk and you're playing ball with your friends, and it starts to get dark at dusk, when it's going into the evening hours. And I didn't realize that I just couldn't see as well. And I'd be running full speed and not see something and just like hit my face on a water pipe on the back of a
wow.
truck, for example.
Wow.
And that's happened, before. I've hit my head on, like concrete downspouts. I've just injury
Oh,
after injury. If I sat here and listed all the injuries that I've had growing up, we would run out of time.
wow.
It wouldn't be possible. But if you can imagine all the physical pain that came from that, and then sort of the emotional pain that goes with it, knowing that my life is going to be very different. And
Hmm.
then fast forward into high school where I'm able to drive a car, but I can't drive at night.
Oh
And so there's
gosh.
this emotional pain and discomfort of not being able to drive a date, go out on a date or drive to the football game. I couldn't play sports at night, like all these different things. And then I had to deal with bullying as well. People would try to turn the lights out on me and start things. So I'd get in
Wow.
fights at school. And so all this happened to me growing up, and it just like, yeah, it was sad. It was like it was hard to deal with, but it made me angry. It made me bitter. Um, I was in a really bad place, and ironically, man, it's a whole lot easier to be totally blind than it is to be half-sighted, you know? Because when I was half-sighted, I was trying to live the life that I thought I was supposed to live, which is that of a sighted person, and I just wasn't really equipped to do it because I couldn't see well enough to drive my car at night. I had to stop driving at 20, 21 years old. And it was dangerous. And then there was, me trying to walk around when my eyesight was fading out in college. And, the way I think about it now is I was trying to be someone that I wasn't, because I was trying to live as if I could see just fine when the reality is my eyesight was fading pretty fast. And finally, when things went totally out for me, it was actually a relief for me because I didn't have to try and pretend to be someone I wasn't anymore. I could
Mm,
just own my situation, and that's when I got my first guide dog, and that really was the thing that for me kind of changed everything, not only how I thought about my circumstances, but also it gave me, instead of me trying to pretend like I could see okay and walking around without a cane or anything like that, I now had a German Shepherd, a big German Shepherd seeing eye dog that was this badge of honor that, hey, this guy's got something wrong with his eyes. So, you can't hide a German Shepherd in a classroom or a conference room. So it forced me to be unapologetically authentic to who I am. It forced me to own my situation, and the mental overhead that I was carrying around for so many years just disappeared because I didn't have to try and pretend that I could see okay. I didn't have to try and, you know, outperform my poor eyesight.
right.
I could just rely on the dog to do his job and be who I am and not have to, to try and compensate. And that was a real relief for me personally. But there were a lot of times when, the whole process from, call it, 5, 6 years old to 23, man, there were some hard times in there. There were definitely some times where wanted to give up. I was a victim of my circumstances. I was angry. I was sad. All the emotions, the whole gamut of emotions that you can imagine, I was there.
Embracing, I think embracing is just that's the key there is embracing who you are, embracing your situations. That doesn't mean you have to be happy about it, but embracing it and letting it, letting it do what it's supposed to do and then let you do take over and do your part. You got that dog. German Shepherds, aren't they the greatest dogs, man? I'm a German Shepherd guy. I've only ever had
I'm
German
biased,
Shepherds,
man,
man.
for sure.
They've always been my dogs, but um Just seeing, yeah, just hearing that, man, and hearing the embrace part. I think that so often we try to fight our circumstances, and then for you,
Yeah,
fortunately and unfortunately, you couldn't fight it. So, when you
yeah,
took that next step is
exactly.
when you learned to embrace it, and then you were able to just to really, okay, now I can be myself. I don't have to worry about all those other things, and I think that's one of the most
Yeah,
important things you said there. Um,
yeah,
explain,
completely.
take us now from 23, man. From struggling growing up, going blind, learning, with the dog. Take us take us through these deals, take us through Harvard, take us through, you know being a keynote speaker, take us through the come up.
Well, so I went back to college. So I guess I should say I went to Leader Dogs for the Blind, got my first guide dog, and I rolled in on campus with this whoa victim mentality. Woe is me, poor me. And I met people there that completely changed my outlook on life almost instantly. I lived with these people for 26 days, and some of them had mental impairments. So, they had these mental disabilities on top of blindness. Some of them were on dialysis because they had diabetes, who they were also blind. And then there were these girls there who were deaf and blind. And you want to talk about challenges. These girls could neither, hear nor see, yet they were getting a dog so that they could be independent. And the living courage exuded by these people just blasted all the pity out of me on contact. That you see somebody on the street and you spend some time with them in passing, that's one thing. But I lived with these people for 26 days, and it completely changed my outlook on life. And so I left Leader Dogs for the Blind not only with a new guide dog and with that unapologetic authenticity, but also a newfound appreciation for the things that I've been given. And so I learned that at that point, happiness is not linked to gratitude. You don't become happy and then be grateful. You become grateful and then you become happy. Like, you
S-
have to have the gratitude first,
say it
and that
again,
changed
Chad.
everything.
Say it again, Chad. Please say it again.
Happiness does not lead to gratitude. It's gratitude that leads to happiness.
You have to first
And once
become
I started
gratitude
reorienting,
grateful.
yeah, exactly. Because if you think about it, up until then, I was thinking about all the things that I didn't have and how unfair life was and how my friends didn't deal with this. And then I met these people who had it far worse off than me, and I lived with them for a month. And I was like, wow, I got all my mental faculties. I've got all my hearing. I don't have to worry about my hearing. It's just fine. And I've had 20 years of eyesight and started to appreciate the finer points that often get overlooked. I was born in the wealthiest country in the world at the dawn of the information age, with technology providing opportunities for work for a blind person that wouldn't otherwise be possible. Who's to say I couldn't have just as easily been born in a poor country or in a time or an era where blind people wouldn't have opportunity? Why wasn't I born in the 1300s, where it was all like labor in the
Yeah,
fields, where
yeah,
I really wouldn't be able to do that? And so
right.
I just started reevaluating things. It's not like any of us get to choose our circumstances, but we do get to choose how we think about our circumstances. And
Hmm.
so I started thinking about my circumstances, I think, more thoughtfully, more intentionally. And so I came back to university at that point with this new outlook on life, and things just started turning in my direction. Like I said, I had to relearn how to learn. I made straight A's in my college business classes. I made the dean's list for the first time. Got a great job at a tech company. Went to Atlanta, where I live now, but made a bit of a detour. So I worked at Anderson Consulting, Accenture, did some consulting there, taught myself how to write code to engineer my own software. I was a business guy, a finance guy, learned how to use computers, learned how to write code without being able to see my computer screen. From
Wow.
there, went into commercial outsourcing and started out doing market intelligence on these large multi-billion-dollar deals. So equipping our sales executives with the information they needed to sell these deals. And next thing I know, I'm getting involved with the pricing of these deals. So I start leading these large commercial outsourcing deals. These are like, seven, eight, $900 million. Some of them are $1 or $2 billion deals. And so we use this unusually complicated spreadsheet system. I taught myself how to use that. In fact, I even wrote 13,000 lines of code so that my software would integrate properly with Microsoft Excel so that I could do my job more effectively. And then as a result of that, there were a lot of people who were doubting whether or not I could use this very intricate system for spreadsheets. But what they didn't know is that my blindness actually gave me an advantage. In order for me to just be able to use these spreadsheets, I had to be able to see the system more deeply. I had to write code to connect my software to Microsoft Excel just to be able to use these spreadsheets. And at the end of the day, I ended up writing a bunch of automation tools using Visual Basic code that automated a lot of what our entire global department was doing. And so I ended up writing these macros that would automate a bunch of the things that we were doing with our hundreds of financial models that saved the whole company money. So they were a bit surprised. Like the blind guy who literally can't even see his computer screen was writing automation tools to automate a bunch of the stuff that we were doing in Microsoft Excel. And so that was good. That was commercial. And from there, I decided I needed to get some experience in the federal space. So I went to work for a large Fed IT provider, and they hired me to help with their single largest account. It was the entire technology infrastructure for the Transportation Security Administration. And I stayed there about a year, realized culturally it wasn't the best fit. So I switched over to another company, SRA, and there's where things really started to blossom for me even more. I got 3 or 4 promotions in the matter of 7 years, went from being a senior lead on our largest deals to being a senior director in charge of the entire pricing strategy and solutions organization, where my decisions and the decisions of my team brought in billions of dollars in revenue in a very compressed market. We were going through the sequester. It was hyper competitive. And we, despite that, had industry leading growth and best in class margins. And so they said, what can we do for you, Chad? You brought in billions of dollars for the company. And for some crazy reason, I told them, hey, send me to Harvard. And for some crazier reason, they said, okay. So they agreed to write a 6-figure check and send me to Harvard. So that's how I ended up
Wow.
getting to HBS. And so from
Wow.
there, things sort of shifted a little bit, because I went into HBS thinking, like most people, I guess, you go to Harvard Business School and it's all about business cases and metrics and valuations and things like that. And we certainly learned about that. But what I learned, I think, more so than anything, was from a professor there, Professor Bill George, who's an executive fellow there and former chairman and CEO of Medtronic, the world's largest medical supply company. And he talks about how to discover your true north. And he teaches his true north leadership framework. And in his class, it occurred to me that I hadn't really done anything with my own personal story. I'd always been focused on my career and how I can impact the organization, but I'd never done anything with the journey that I've been on. And it occurred to me at that moment that I should be doing more with what I've been through and the lessons I've learned. And as fate would have it, I had this feeling that I would be elected as our graduating speaker. So I flew to Texas, met with a professional speaker, spent a considerable amount of money to write my first talk ever for a graduation that I'd not even been nominated or elected for at Harvard. And but I just had this feeling, and my wife was looking at me like, wait, you're going to do what? Like, you're going to go to Texas and spend how much for a talk that you don't even, it doesn't even exist? I said, I'm sorry, baby, I can't explain it, but I just know it's supposed to happen. And I did that. And obviously I went back to Boston for graduation. I was nominated and elected to speak. And it just completely changed my life, because I saw firsthand how I could help people. One guy I'll never forget comes up to me afterwards, and he's bawling in my arms. He's crying his eyes out. And I found out later on that this guy had lost his daughter the year before to cancer, and something I'd said had helped him. And I'm not naturally a real soft and fuzzy person. I've had a pretty hard life. I've been through some stuff, so it sort of hardens your edge. But when you've got a parent just bawling in your arms because something you said helped them deal with unimaginable loss, it
Powerful.
changes you. And it totally changed me. And it helped me realize that how I viewed my situation was a lot less relevant than how other people viewed my situation, because I didn't really see my situation as inspirational. I wasn't trying to inspire anybody. I was just doing what I had to do. But if other people found hope and optimism in that, and I could uncover some learnings for people in that, then I needed to put some effort behind that. And you have a moment like that, you just can't unknow it. Once you know that you can have that kind of an impact, you can't unknow it. And I knew moving forward that if I didn't do anything, knowing the impact that I could have, it was borderline, negligent on my part. And so from that point forward, I started thinking about things differently and linking that to what Bill George had said, where you can find the moments in your life with trauma and grief and somehow repurpose them into purpose to help other people. And that's when I found my true north. And it's, helping people with the lessons that I've learned. And I guess what I did not expect is, by doing that, it actually makes going blind worth it in some sort of weird way because yeah, I may have lost my own vision, but I can help other people find theirs. And I've been
Hmm.
given this beautiful gift of blindness disguised in some really ugly wrapping paper. And so now I want to help other people kind of uncover their own gifts. What gifts are right in front of your listeners if they could just kind of pause and reflect and open their hearts and their minds to receive those gifts. Because if you'd asked me when I was 20 years old, is blindness a gift? I probably, I wouldn't have reacted very positively to that. But now here I am, 20 something years removed, and now I can see things more clearly. No pun intended. But it's
You know,
it's
Chad,
it's
I
kind of
was
surreal.
Chad, I was watching a couple of your videos before I got on here, man. You're a funny guy. You're some of the jokes that you were making,
Oh, you got
it's
to have fun with it, man. You absolutely got to have fun with it, right?
yeah, let's you know what? Let's just go and let's carry that into, you talked about you said, well, let's take a second and look at the gifts that we have in front of us, right? Now, you took a situation and turned it into a gift by via your resiliency. And that is the missing factor, right? So for the listeners who may see their
Yeah.
gifts but don't know how to go and really achieve that goal, what do you tell to them about building the resiliency to get to that goal, right? Because we all, a lot of us can see our goals, but we don't have the daily habits to go and pursue those goals. So what are you telling, what are the tools that you used to build the resiliency in your life, and what could you give to the listeners and via the way to build resiliency in their own lives?
There are 5 pillars of resilience that I talk about. I think of these as the anatomy of resilience. And I talk about these in my keynotes. I break them down more. Obviously, there's a lot of storytelling that I arrange around these pillars. But essentially, resilience to me boils down to 5 fundamental truths. Number one, you get to choose how you respond to everything in life. You don't
Okay.
always get to choose what happens to you, but you alone get to choose your response. And so I think of that like a game of cards. No player gets to control the cards that they're dealt, but every player gets to choose how they play their cards.
Hmm.
Truth number two, you will become your stories. So you have to learn to tell yourself the right stories. You don't get to choose everything that happens to you, but you get to choose how you narrate the situation to yourself. So the facts are far less relevant than the stories that we tell ourselves about those facts. So I could have chosen to tell myself that I went blind because I've got bad luck, which technically could be true. But instead, I chose to tell myself that I went blind because I'm one of the few people on the planet who has the strength and the toughness to overcome that and use it to help other people. So it
Hmm.
takes my disability and it transforms it into my strength. It's like a Jedi mind trick.
There
Instead
you
of me
go.
being painted in a corner like a victim, I'm telling myself that it happened to me because I can deal with it, which also means that I can deal with all of the other curveballs that life throws at me. So
Absolutely, Chad.
this is really important. Everybody's got to
Absolutely.
learn to tell themselves the right stories.
Absolutely. Self-talk, self-affirmations, one of our pillars at One by One. Absolutely.
Yep. The third truth is you have to visualize greatness even in unpalatable circumstances. I had to figure out how to
Mm.
make blind look good. And so if I could never reimagine my future, anchored to the reality of my blindness, but bold enough to inspire me to take action, how could I ever move towards acceptance or move towards thriving? And the reality is I couldn't. Otherwise, I would just be in denial. So if you can reimagine your future, anchored to the facts, but also bold enough that inspires you to do the hard work that it's going to take to get towards your goal, your new vision of greatness, then you can be inspired and motivated to do that hard work. And so you have to visualize greatness in the unchangeable circumstances. And then the fourth truth this is kind of where mindset meets action, in my opinion, and that you have to get comfortable with discomfort. And so you have
Mm.
to lean into the discomfort and do the hard work. And so the net of it is, if you or any of your listeners are never getting outside of their comfort zones, if you're not getting outside of your comfort zone, then you're just not going to grow. That's where life happens. Life begins outside of our comfort zones. And so I like to think that a big part of why I'm at where I'm at today is because so much of my life has been an experiment of living outside my comfort zone. Whether it was learning the limitations of my eyesight at a young age, or the many trips to the hospital, or the emotional discomfort when I was in my teens, or walking into a job interview with a German Shepherd, or hopping a flight to Singapore without being able to see, getting to the gym for my 5 a.m. workout in a hotel I've never been in Singapore or China or Japan or anywhere in Europe without being able to see any of the signage, but still doing the hard work to maintain my routine. And the thing is, the more you keep creeping outside your comfort zone, the more you'll notice your edges of your comfort zone expand. And so now I'm so comfortable with discomfort that I'm a totally blind guy who downhill skis down black and double black diamonds and competes in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu combat sports tournaments. And
Don't
so,
hold on. We haven't got there yet, Chad. All right, we're getting there now. No, we're getting there now. So was that the fifth one? Was that the fifth true? Did we
no, that was the
get
fourth. I'll
go
I'll
to
I'll
five?
say the
Don't
fourth. I'll say the
spoil it
fifth
yet.
one, and
Don't
then
spoil it yet. We're gonna get to let's hear the fifth one.
all
We'll get
right.
to
Sorry,
your
sorry.
athletic
The,
endeavors.
so the fifth one is take advantage of your disadvantages. And so every perceived disadvantage offers us some advantage if we use it in the right context. So how can you think more strategically about the things that you view as a disadvantage? How can you put yourself in a position to where those things become a strength for you instead of a liability?
Okay. Okay. All right.
I'll pause on that.
Yeah, I so real quickly, do you mind if I borrow those? I love those. The resiliency, the five fundamental truths. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's gonna be one of my staples because I'm a huge believer. I'm a huge, fan of resiliency. And I just think with the way you put it, those five truths, I don't they you can't argue with them, right? And so
It's hard
yeah,
to.
I love that.
It really is. And these aren't things that I read in a book somewhere. These are just they bubble up out of my lived experience. And so
Lived. I love it. Lived.
exactly.
Let's let's get into Air Chad. I was on the
I jumped the gun
website.
a little bit. Sorry about that.
Let's that's all right. That's all right. Let's talk about the role first and foremost that sports and fitness and athletics has played in your life. Because they
Yeah.
can't see
I
you,
don't
but I see how fit you are. I see that you keep everything and you keep up with yourself. So talk to us about what that role has been like in your life.
I wouldn't be where I'm at today if it weren't for that. So I've been a gym rat since I was 14. Growing up, I wasn't really genetically gifted. And I kind of looked at what was going on in my life. I was 14 years old in high school. I weighed less than 100 pounds. I
Wow.
couldn't lift 100 pounds. And I realized I needed to change something. I was good at sports, but I just wasn't I wasn't in great shape. I was thin,
Right.
but I wasn't in great shape. So I became a gym rat at 14, been lifting weights ever since. And,
I mean, I don't
a
how do
a
you
lot of my friends,
ski? How do you ski? How do you do martial arts? I mean, that is
well,
incredible.
Well, I'll get to that in a second, but I think the point I was trying to make with the lifting, it's like a lot of friends in high school, they're out partying, having a good time. I was lifting weights, and there were days that I wanted to go do something besides lift, but it takes mental discipline to go train on days that you don't want to go train, and the mental discipline that it takes to do the hard work, even when you don't want to do it, it bleeds over into other areas of your life. And so it's not just in the gym, it's not just training, it's everywhere. Whether that's work, doing the hard work that you want to in the office, or on a relationship, or around the house, or whatever. That discipline feeds other areas of your life. And so yeah, I went from like 100-pound kid at 14, my freshman year in high school. By the time I was a senior, I weighed 180 pounds, not a lot of muscle, probably 6, 7% fat. And I weigh a little bit more than that now, but I'm in better shape now. And it's because of the jujitsu and the skiing and everything else. And so I started training in Brazilian jiu-jitsu probably about 2.5 years ago. And I go, every day that I'm not traveling. So if I'm not traveling, I'll train 7 days a week. If I am traveling, it's just whenever I get back, usually if I can find an academy in a city where I'm speaking. But it's a full body workout and it doesn't involve any striking, which is a good thing for me because if jujitsu were a martial art that involves striking, I would just end up being the punching bag. But it's all chokeholds and joint locks. That's what we use. And so that's how you take out your opponent and how you protect yourself is with chokeholds and joint locks. So it's all hands on. And I don't know of a better workout, honestly, than jujitsu because it's a full body workout. Your core has to be in really good shape. So for a 48-year-old dude, right? You go 6, 7 times a week. You cannot go that often and train as hard as I train and not be ripped up. It's just impossible. It demands too much of you mentally, physically, and I would even say spiritually. And I don't
Absolutely.
say that lightly. The spiritual part of it, you think you're good at dealing with fear. Let me tell you, when you get on a mat and you got somebody who puts you in a chokehold and you don't think you're getting out of it, the first few times that happens, you're going to panic, right? You get terrified, adrenaline spikes, breathing gets out of control. You start wondering what to do. But over time, what you learn to do, the more you train, the more you learn to just settle into that terror. So instead of letting that fear dominate you and control you, you learn to relax in the face of fear. You learn to control your breathing, to bring your heart rate down, to just settle into the terror, be really calm in it, and start calmly looking for a way out of it. And a lot of times, ironically, those seemingly inescapable chokeholds actually do have a way out. If you can just stay calm and relaxed enough to look for them. And that's not helpful just on the mat when you're fighting somebody, but it's helpful in life. I mean, how many people here have had, whether it's something in their professional lives or their personal lives, maybe it's a medical matter or something going on in their jobs. How often has something like that made you feel like you're in a chokehold where it's hard to breathe and you feel this anxiety and you feel the blood pressure rise and the heart rate go up? And what if you could just get really good at leaning into that and
Hmm.
settling into that and getting really comfortable and calm in that and
Hmm.
finding ways out of it? Because it's true on the map, but it's true in the world too. You don't have to be fighting to see the benefits of that. And so that's why I really talk a lot about edging outside that comfort zone and getting comfortable with discomfort and settling into the terror, because I think that's on the other side of fear is where growth lies, right? If you're not
Hmm.
scared of something, then you're probably not going to grow from it. And so I just believe that on the other side of fear is growth. And so I'm a huge believer in that for me personally. I'll pause there before I talk about skiing because you probably have a reaction on that.
No, I mean that's incredible, man. I'm listening to this story and I'm just like everything you're saying, it's how one of my favorite quotes is how you do one thing is how you do everything. Right? So
Yeah.
there is a tremendous amount of transference there. And I can speak from my perspective of being injured, right? So, I've had five
Yep.
surgeries, season ending, potentially season ending injuries, but each time coming back, one thing that we've got to do is say you tear your ACL, right? You don't just stop lifting lower body, you lift your left side, you lift your calves, you lift things that you work on things that you
Yep.
can still do every day because it will
Yep.
transfer. It will transfer. Not only will,
Yep.
scientifically your muscles and everything will adapt on the other side. It's been proven. If you were, you're lifting left bicep, your right
Hmm.
bicep will be easier. When you start lifting right bicep, the muscle will come back quicker, right? It's the same concept.
Okay.
The
I love
transference.
that.
Yeah, right. It's no, it's scientifically proven. And so, being a basketball player and an athlete, I spent a lot of times being injured, and you got to find different modifications, right? And so you have to
Hmm.
have that confidence that at the end of the day, it will transfer. So the same way with the discipline on the mat, right? So you're getting choked, you're in a chokehold and you feel like you're dying. Yeah, well, if you can learn to sit still in this, when you're in a game and the pressure's built up and you got the last free throw and the title, the championship, if you can learn to be still in that, it all transfers. It's all applicable, right? And so
Amen.
and so,
Amen.
one of the things you said is like, if you can do this on the mat, I can take this and do this in my everyday life. And so I really feel that, man. I really side with that because I've been there, I've experienced it, and I truly believe in it.
Yeah, I use it, man. I use it a lot. Like I find myself narrating to myself, like I'm in a high pressure situation, and it's like, well, okay, stakes are high, but at least I don't have a 270-pound man on my back trying to choke me.
Right, right, right.
It's not that bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You look at it like
no.
that, and you're like, it's not that bad. I
Yeah,
can I can make my way out of this.
yeah, and it is, man, it is really, and you have the perfect you have the perfect story. It is the definition of resiliency. That is the word that stuck with me. That is going to be my word for you for the rest of time, man. The resiliency is what builds you up. Is get staying uncomfortable so you can be comfortable, right? That's what it's about. Is
Yeah,
is is learning to still your mind and still your body and still your soul, the spiritual, all of that, man. I
yep.
sit here and I'm listening. I'm like, man, it just gets me amped up thinking about it, right?
Oh man, I'm getting jacked myself. I can't wait to go get a roll in here later. I've got
Talk to
about
me.
another hour or so, 2 hours.
Talk to me, man. Talk to me
Which
about
part?
skiing down these huge man. I've never been skiing. I've done some water. I've done some,
Mm-hmm.
some water skiing and things like that. I've never been snow skiing, but
Yep.
watching that video
Yep.
of you, that I mean, how bring us through, bring us to that. Talk to us through it.
So I started skiing, at 38 years old, totally blind. Decided it'd be a good idea to put on a pair of skis and start heading down a mountain at a not initially at least a high rate of speed, but we've been doing it. I've been doing it now for about 10 years. I'm 48, go every year now. But I learned how to ski at 38 years old, totally blind. Went 3 or 4 days a year for the first 4 years, and how it works is I wear a helmet with an earpiece and a microphone, and someone skis behind me and they're wearing an earpiece and a microphone, and we communicate with one another, and they're telling me which way to
Mm,
go, left and right, and that sort of thing, whether or not we're coming up on bumps or moguls, what the terrain's looking like. Not a lot of time for conversations, you can imagine, because we started off, we're going, I don't know, 15, 20 miles an hour. We've hit speeds 55, 60 miles an hour now that we're working out a good system for it on black and sometimes even double black diamond terrain.
wow.
So we get up there in a pretty decent clip. We're not you know, just cruising down the mountain at a slow pace, and we take on some pretty aggressive stuff. Not crazy, we try to keep it safe. But
Yeah.
recognizing that there's only so much risk you can mitigate being a totally blind skier. But the main thing you watch out for as a blind skier are trees and people. Those are not your friend when
There
you're
you
out there on
go.
the mountain, or trees and people. So you have to watch out for those. So we try to avoid crowds, and there are some runs that are labeled black or double black because of the trees. We don't do those runs. We don't do the runs that are just a bunch of trees where you got to ski in between these really tight passageways. We don't do that, but we'll take on the ones that have steep pitch and bumps and things like that, where it doesn't have like an obvious, hey, you're an idiot, kind of, you hit a tree, because they're all crammed in there and there's nowhere to go. It's like there's a fine line between being brave and being an idiot. I try to think that I'm not an idiot. So we try and manage that risk accordingly, but it is very freeing, very liberating, and obviously you get a chance to face your fears and get comfortable with discomfort. And there's a lot of opportunity for growth, because every mountain, every situation is a little bit different,
Yeah.
and you get to push yourself and learn where your edges are and continue to push your edges, which I really love.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, man, I could keep you here all day to learn about and pick your brain about these things, and it's been an honor to have you on here, man. I don't want to keep you too long. I know you've got busy schedule. I know you carved out a little bit of time for this interview, and I really appreciate that. So before we get
My
out of
pleasure being
here,
here. Thanks for having me.
before we
Yeah.
get out of here, I want to ask you a couple. We'll get straight to the question. We like to ask all our guests. Um, the
Okay.
question is, man, what do you do? How do you practice self-love?
I know what puts Chad in the best possible headspace. I know the formula for my best self, and I know what it takes. I know that for me, it involves time to work out. It involves time to train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It involves sitting time for mindfulness.
Mhm.
it involves journaling. And I know that if I get those things in on a regular basis on my schedule, then I can weather the storm of whatever the day throws at me.
Yes.
And that is what puts me in a balanced state to navigate the twists and turns. If I don't do those things, I know that I will not be in a balanced state of centeredness and I won't
Hmm.
be able to navigate and things will throw me off balance. And so I am, I would say, highly disciplined
Hmm.
about making sure that I do those things because I think of it like this. Just about everybody out there has been on a plane, and you get on the plane, and what do they tell you? They tell you got to put on your mask if cabin pressure drops, but make sure you put on your mask before you help other people secure their mask.
Hmm.
Well, for me, those things that I just said, the mindfulness, the working out, the Brazilian jiu-jitsu training, the journaling, all those are ways that I secure my mask. And I know that if I don't secure my mask, I can't be there to help other people to secure their mask. And so that's my way of taking care of myself to ensure that I can be there for my kids, for my wife, for the work that I need to do, my customers, my clients, and all the other priorities and obligations that I have. Without that, I know that I'm going to fall short in one of those areas. So for me, that's huge priority.
That that was an incredible analogy, by the way. Incredible. Um, but
Thank you.
it is, as I'm getting older, today's my birthday, 31. I'm 31 today.
Happy
But
birthday, man.
thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. As I'm getting older,
Nice.
my field is sports psychology, and I'm, teaching. I graduated with a degree in psychology, started my master's from Oral Roberts in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But
Nice.
as I'm
Very
getting
nice.
older, and even on this podcast, as I'm getting older, my goal is to teach people teach people how to center themselves to to be better equipped to take on life, to be better equipped to continue pushing the limits to increase their resiliency, right? People, you can't
Yeah.
be resilient, you can't practice resiliency on a daily basis without doing that homework that you just talked about, without doing the mindful
Yeah.
practices, without taking care of yourself
Yeah.
physically, right? You cannot do those. You
Yeah.
cannot build resiliency because you can't give everything you have if you're leaving a little bit on the table, if you're not taking care of your mental, if you're not taking care of your physical. You cannot push those limits. So
Absolutely.
so my
Your
goal
your
is
your your tank's empty. Your
ex-
tank is empty.
exactly. So my goal is, and especially with with today's day and age, is to just teach people how to teach people practical ways to keep their cup full, and daily exercises. And take it back to what I was saying about me getting older, is I'm realizing that those things play a huge role in my life. If I do not take time to read, if I do not take time to do my mindful practices, I am behind the eight ball and I'm playing catch up all day. I don't ever get in front of the cue ball, right? I don't ever get in front and say, okay, this is, let me turn around and look at what's going on. I can't
Yeah.
properly assess situations because I'm playing catch up and my mind is in a frantic state.
Yeah.
But when I'm
Yeah.
able to relax
It's
and
that.
use these mindful practices and meditate and visualize, one thing that I'm convinced that the youths believe it's a fallacy, is visualization. But the older you get, the more knowledge you gain, you
Hmm,
realize that these things are real. And the real successful people, they all implement it. You have to. There's no other way around it.
I totally agree. Yeah, I don't think it's a fallacy at all. It's for me, it's as real as this water bottle I'm drinking out of right here.
Yeah.
It's if you can't wrap your mind around what it is that you're trying to accomplish, visualize success in it, your odds of success go way, way down. And so getting those mental reps of believing and like telling yourself those stories, it all gets back to kind of the thing that I'd said earlier, telling yourself the right stories, but it's visualizing the outcomes that you want based on the stories that you want to come true. It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it
It
it might feel a little
100%.
delusional at first. It might feel a little delusional and still until stuff starts clicking into place, and then it's no longer a story or a delusion.
But
It's a
but here's the
reality.
thing, Chad. It's only delusional, and this is for the viewers and the listeners. It's only delusional because it's unfamiliar. That's the only reason
Yeah.
why. You've never been there. You don't know what it looks like.
Yeah.
That's why you're hesitant. Take a leap of faith. Go out on a limb. Push the limit. Push the boundary. Push the limit,
Absolutely.
and you will acquire the knowledge. You will acquire the tools on your way there. But to think that you need to see it before you go there, it's not going to work like that. Learn from the greats. Learn from guys like Chad. Chad, I've learned a lot from you. I really appreciate you. Learn a lot from these
Absolutely.
guys, and they've been there. They have been everywhere that you want to be. Take their knowledge and apply it, and then watch how it changes your life.
Yeah, absolutely will.
Man,
It's real. That stuff is real. I use it in my life all the time.
I can tell. Really, I can tell, man. Chad, look, I'm not going to keep you any longer, man. I just want to say again, thank you. I know for the guys who
Pleasure.
are for the people who are viewing, they can see your all your tags and things like that. But for the audio only supporters, let them know where they can find you at. Where can we find you?
Yeah, go to my website. That's the easiest way, chadefoster.com. You can Google me, Chad Foster. I'll pop up too. But if you go to chadefoster.com, you'll find all my social stuff there. Facebook and Instagram, find Chad E. Foster. X, formerly Twitter, at Chad E. Foster. And I'm on LinkedIn as well.
Absolutely, man. And yeah, you're I, you know you have been great, man. Your communication has been great. I'm really, I before I got on here, I checked out your stuff on YouTube, and I was like, wow, I've got it. I need to prepare for this because this guy's really he's coming with the knowledge, he's coming with the game, he's coming with it all. So got on there, prepared myself, man, because I knew that this was going to be
I
a great
appreciate that.
episode. I do. I really
I appreciate you doing the homework, brother. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely, man. Well, I'll let you get back to your busy day. We will definitely be in touch, man. I appreciate you for coming on here, sharing your experiences with us. Yeah, it was amazing.